date is December 30th, 2018. And this is where our timeline begins.
Okay, children. Here we are.
Season 1. The season started with the establishment of a small outpost in a valley at Spawn. Jace, accompanied by the late twins by the names of Josh and James, created a medium-sized farm and began to enslave the people at Spawn. Using this slave labor, they were able to garner massive amounts of coal, which they sold to outside sources, mainly the now forgotten Requiem for Meme. Eventually, the now legendary duo of slaves, R.L. Puck and Anonymous 382, would escape thanks to their pursuer, Jace, being struck by lightning. They would go on to create a village of their own and eventually would begin trading with their former slavers. Jace would go on to form a name for his farm at Spawn. He called it the Empire. He then incorporated this village of former slaves into his empire, along with everything else in the world. The Empire was a true world government and had its purpose in ensuing the improvement of trade between all players. Unfortunately, the season would meet an untimely end when Requiem for Meme tricked the gullible Jace into giving him creative mode to defend himself from what he claimed was the infamous Herobrine. Due to the inclusion of creative mode, the entire world felt pointless, and so it was ended in favor of the creation of a new world, or rather, season. With the introduction of this season idea, the plan was to continue what was established in the first world and bring it to the new one with a fresh start. The Empire formed in the previous season was still active and now under the leadership of Jace, R.L. Puck, and Anonymous 382. Together, they started on a giant village that they intended on expanding as much as possible. This could be considered the first example of a unificationalist playstyle in the series. This precedent would end up being carried on throughout the rest of the first era. Eventually, R.L. Puck decided to simply leave the Empire for reasons that have been lost to time. He would go on to build a house atop a nearby mountain before proclaiming it as the Himalayan Empire. Jace and Anonymous took this negatively and quickly went to set up a trench at the foot of the mountain in preparation for their next move. They attacked the base as R.L. Puck fled. It was burned to the ground. The rest of the season would see the Empire continue to expand its giant village and would have the first appearance of a few very prominent members, those being Export and the infamous AIDS. The season would end as Anonymous and Jace sat atop a mountain watching the sunset. This later set the precedent of ending a season by watching the sunset. Season 2 would be referenced particularly by Jace as something to strive towards. As far as Season 7, it was by far the most influential season of the first era. Season 3 started off with the joining of a very important figure in the server, even today. 2 eras later, Blocky Danny. The world at this point was on a seed that promoted itself as a giant mesa biome, and that it very much was. The small divisions started in the previous season had completely healed, and at this point, everyone was building together at Spawn. The town at Spawn was named Epic Gamer Town. It was extremely peaceful. Many who played during this period long for something like this, even today, with Danny being a huge advocate for Season 3 culture. Eventually things did start going downhill for Epic Gamer Town though. A feud between Arl Puck and AIDS would form, and they would end up burning one another's houses back and forth constantly. This would lead to several different court sessions, which resulted in the feud spreading to also include Anonymous 382. Before they knew it, the entire town, aside from Jace, Danny, and San, was engulfed in a brutal back-and-forth battle of fighting fire with fire, quite literally. In the midst of all this, a friend of Danny's would make his way into the world. His name is lost to time, but is recorded that he bore the resemblance of a panda. This person would bring a discovery to the series that would change everything for the next 4 seasons. That discovery was duplication. It started with him handing out diamonds and promising to end world poverty, and then it turned into him simply showing everyone how to do it, which quickly escalated to the diamond losing its value and any hopes of economy being completely crushed. And just as quickly as he came, he was gone, leaving the community in ruin. It was soon determined that Epic Gamer Town was too far gone, and so everyone packed up their things and left to set up a community elsewhere. As Danny was leaving the town, he had a close call encounter with the server's first hacker, Lego Monkey, who destroyed what was left of Epic Gamer Town. The new village would find itself encapsulating what would later be referred to as the perfect unificationalist culture. Everything was peaceful, and everyone helped everyone when they could. This is also the point where the Empire from the previous season was changed to the Republic, which was based entirely around community and peace. The first Pucks was opened here by Jace, and Danny would go on to experiment with hacking himself, giving away an overpowered piece of equipment to everyone. Eventually, everyone would come together to duplicate their pieces, so everyone had the full set. AIDS would also start hacking and would build a giant obsidian base in the sky. Overall, the world had yet again been completely overrun with cheating. And just like the first season had, this season would end shortly after, and was the shortest season by far, with the Ender Dragon not even being defeated. Season 4 started right off the bat with hacking and cheating, but they made it work by using it to better channel their creativity without the limit of resources. This season would be defined by its great builds, such as the planet build above the first village, Jace's item sorter, and most famously, AIDS City. This season also saw the start of the fishing tournaments that would be practiced even in Charlesonia as late as Season 9. The community at this time was very tight-knit, with the fishing tournaments taking place at least twice a day, and the AIDS City project taking the combined effort of everybody. On top of this, the server would also see the introduction of one of the most famous users ever, Ben. His contribution to the village was a small hut surrounded by berries. In the end, Season 4 would yet again be ended due to the immense amount of cheating. It was determined right then that the community could not survive without the resource element. Otherwise, everything simply becomes pointless. Season 4 will be defined as the season in which the Republic was fully embraced and put into full effect for the first time. The horrible economic situation and community connection and projects would later go on to define what the Republic was. Season 5 was a very complicated period in the series' history. It actually started while S4 was still in effect and had to be paused close to a month in due to complications with the beta version of the game that they were experimenting with at the time. As a result, we got Season 5.5, a temporary buffer world as we all waited for the new update to come out. This season would be the first time that hacking was illegal, with Danny actually getting into an argument over the issue, resulting in a small dispute involving TNT and minor damages. This temporary season would also see the return of RL Puck and Anonymous 382, as they once again took to stirring up trouble with the Cobblestone Rebellion incident. Another important incident was the discovery that Ben was actually a hacker the entire time. This was let go, though, due to him not ever abusing it. Overall, Season 5.5 was relatively uneventful. After its conclusion, all of the S1 players who returned once again left, and things returned to normal as the community returned to the S5 world. Season 5 is when the shift in server and community culture really started to set in. During the beta testing period that had made the world unplayable, Jace found a fox, which is the main feature of this beta. He named this fox Charles. This fox would survive throughout the entire season. It would remain an important part of the server for years to come. The current name of the series is still based off of this very fox. Aside from the creation of the Charles religion, the community started to reach its arms deeper into the small Minecraft communities on Bedrock at this time. The community started by the Legend of Lewis and Slab Seeker, which is now completely gone, was infiltrated by Blocky, Jace, and Export, where they would become very prominent members. This would bring about the joining of Barrier Breaker, who is now a very prominent member and has been for years. After the two founders of this community had a falling out, their communities began to slowly die. This event would come into play later in the next installment of the timeline, but the important takeaway from this is that the community started reaching out. Eventually, Season 5 would end very naturally and quietly as the community began its transition to a new world. Little did they know that this next season would be the start of something completely foreign to what they had come to know. Season 6 started like all those that had come before it. However, around halfway through the world's lifespan, there was an influx of players from a community online called Brick Filmers. From these people, the community got several prominent names, such as Luke Prod, Dave, and most importantly for Season 6, Z-Tub. Z-Tub would do something that had been completely unthought of since Season 2. That being, he created a town outside of the Republic. This caused absolute outrage among the people of the Republic, and one night, the Grand Army of Charles forcefully drafted everyone in Charles and marched into his town. When the Grand Army moved through it, they completely burned it to the ground. Zeta would end up going into hiding for a while as the rest of the world was in a state of extreme change. Charlesonia was the merger of the Grand Army of Charles and the remnants of the now shattered Republic. Charlesonia took the ashes of this ancient faction and rebuilt it bigger and stronger than ever, with the mindset of pacifism being outright removed from the minds of its leadership. When Z-Tub returned with the help of some other brick filmers, he had no idea what kind of opponent he was truly facing now. The Doggo Sleuth alliance that he created with Tristan Animations was completely destroyed before the end of the season, which came shortly after. The creation of Charlesonia and into the 6th season is where the Ancient Era, or Chapter 0, officially ends and marks the beginning of the modern server that we have all come to know today. In the next installment of this timeline, I'll be going over the first era of Chapter 1, the Cottony era. If you'd like to join this server, it is still up and running. The story is still being woven, and the community would love to have whatever you have to offer to the grand story of this wonderful community that was all started by a 13-year-old kid 5 years ago with no idea what he was about to start. Thank you for watching.
World now. Okay, children.